Nations Cup World Champion, and the man who has won 2 races so far here today is starting on pole position. Jose Serrano, the Spaniard, 15 points the advantage he has with 24 left on the table. Can he convert it into a second Nations Cup world title? Takuma Miyazono, the outgoing champion, potentially lines up on the front row of the grid with Valerio Gallo heading the second row and Pol Ura for company alongside, who's been somewhat in the wars so far today. Kylian Drumont is in 5th position, the Frenchman, and he's joined by Takuma Sasaki in P6. Next up on the grid is Guy Barbara, the Australian, who made some good progress from where he started in that second race. He's got Adriano Carrazza for company. Then it's Kai de Bruyne lining up in 9th position, who's had a bit of a dog's day at the office so far. Ankelina Stroza completes it with P10, and the grid is rounded out by Samuel Cardinal, the Canadian driver, in 11th place. Now, of course, we have 3 different compounds of tyre, and the top 4 starting on the softs, the rest are on mediums and hards.
Yeah, I mean, expected really. We tend to see the drivers hurry up the grid, go on those soft tyres and try and break away, but the last race here of 2025, all to play for here in the Nations Cup. Jose Serrano leading the field. He'll love that. We said before, he'll like leading from the front. He's proved that already today in 2 races. What must be going through his head right now? Try and keep it calm, Jose.
Absolutely. A lot of pressure on that young man's shoulders. Takuma Miyazono there in the middle of your picture as well. He would love to retain that crown, but it's going to be a fairly tall ask for the Spaniard. For the Japanese driver. Let's wait and see, with the Spaniard, of course, lining this one up on pole position. Valerio Gallo's been on great form so far this weekend as well. Let's see how the Italian can turn things around. The former Nations Cup champion himself. For one final time in 2025, we go racing as the grand final for the Nations Cup is underway. Jose Serrano leads them across the line with Miyazono, Gallo and Pol Ura for company. Into the braking zone we see Miyazono lunging his way up the inside of Serrano. A bit too late though, and not quite enough for him to attack and take the position away, with Gallo looking for a move on the inside but not quite able to make it as well. So Serrano it is that leads from Miyazono, from Gallo, as we come through the first part of the opening lap.
The car staked down through the Grand Prix version of the circuit here. Everyone just, I think, figuring out what they want to do, where they are, what their competitors' strategies are at the moment, of course. Through the hairpin at the bottom and now flat out back up the hill through the Michael Schumacher S. Easily flat in these X2019 machines, even with the dirty air here, as you then get through the last part of this GP circuit. This feels like child's play in comparison to what's coming next. The Nordschleife for the Northern Loop, where, well, really, where you become a proper driver.
Absolutely, a lot of time for things to change in this race. We're coming through onto the Nordschleife. It's a very different circuit compared to this Grand Prix layout, Jimmy, as we mentioned earlier on. It's so one the line through there, one at a time. You can't really overtake, so you sort of have to get it done at this part of the circuit. Nordschleife.
Even with the dirt at the moment.
Taking the position of Galley 5, we go racing as the grand final for the Nations Cup is underway. Jose Serrano leads them across the line with Miyazono, Gallo and Pol Ura for company. Into the braking zone we see Miyazono lunging his way up the inside of Serrano. A bit too late though, and not quite enough for him to attack and take the position away, with Gallo looking for a move on the inside but not quite able to make it as well. So Serrano it is that leads from Miyazono, from Gallo, as we come through the first part of the opening lap.
The car staked down through the Grand Prix version of the circuit here. Everyone just, I think, figuring out what they want to do, where they are, what their competitors' strategies are at the moment, of course. Through the hairpin at the bottom and now flat out back up the hill through the Michael Schumacher S. Easily flat in these X2019 machines, even with the dirty air here, as you then get through the last part of this GP circuit. This feels like child's play in comparison to what's coming next. The Nordschleife for the Northern Loop, where, well, really, where you become a proper driver.
Absolutely, a lot of time for things to change in this race. We're coming through onto the Nordschleife. It's a very different circuit compared to this Grand Prix layout, Jimmy, as we mentioned earlier on. It's so one the line through there, one at a time. You can't really overtake, so you sort of have to get it done at this part of the circuit.
Yeah, I mean, you can overtake. There are places to do it, but the track narrows up considerably as you come onto this part of the track you can see now. And of course, the curves extremely high here. These things are glued to the ground. Touch a curve of speed in this thing, super easy just to eject yourself into the wall there. 300 kph for braking through the section of Hudson back here. See Ura there flirting with the curb on the right-hand side. Just the speed through here is ridiculous, it really is. But this is where one of the mild overtaking opportunities here. It's come up towards Fukuoka, getting the draft. Miyazono giving the draft to Gallo, giving the draft to Yura. Serrano already 1.1 seconds off the road. Look at that. Amazing start from Jose.
Yeah, brilliant. Exactly what he was expecting to do there. Miyazono now coming under pressure here from Valerio Gallo. He's got the inside line as we come through the left-hander. Miyazono just deciding not to fight that one too much at this opening stage of the race.
He actually indicated to get out of the way there. So I think maybe sensing the pace of Gallo, or just saying, I don't want to fight too much. Speaking of fighting, Paul Euro don't care. He's up into third place. Big dive from the Spaniard there. Not willing to give up on this title just yet. But Gallo now has been charged with leading or trying to get onto the back of Serrano. He's come through the foxhole now, up the top here, through into Adenau, fourth. Really technical part of the circuit here. Really easy to spin the rear wheels in this thing, and on that soft tyre, they're going to try and make this tyre last a couple of laps. They can't afford to spin the wheel, to scrub the front tyres. It's all about precision and making sure you keep those tyres happy.
And that's the thing, is where you've got to be very careful about how you play this strategy. If you go for an aggressive one and you decide to go an extra lap, I mean, that's different if you're competing at somewhere like Spa or the circuit you're Villeneuve, we've seen here tonight already. But here at the Nürburgring, of course, it's a very big circuit. You can't really afford to take that gamble. You've got to be a bit more planned.
No, if you do have a mistake here, you go on the grass, there is no runoff. You just go straight into that barrier, and it's never a smooth crash at the Nürburgring. So these guys will have that in the head and come now down to the midpoint of the circuit, down towards the town of Adenau. You can just see it there in the background.
Lovely bit of curry burst on the right hand side. You can get in the restaurant.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, you learn to avoid that after a while. But up through the hill now towards Bergwerk, where Niki Lauda had his huge crash a long time ago now. But this is another spot where you can kind of use the toe up the hill and try and pull past someone. Serrano still edging that gap, 1.4 seconds now to stay on board with Miyazono. Completely flat up here. You wouldn't feel like it given the elevation, the bumps, and where the car turns here. But the aero of this car forces it into the ground, keeps that tyre contacting the road, and keeps it quick up here. Nearly 200 mile an hour up here as we go up towards the mid curve. Is it flat out in these cars? Easily, oh my word, that's fast.
Look at Yura, he is all over the back of Valerio Gallo like a bad rash here, is he? Just trying to find his way through, but there's not really a gap to do so at the moment. That's the problem with this part of the circuit. As Jimmy said, it narrows up so much, and unless you're going to send it through on the inside, you can cost yourself more time, cost yourself a position, and maybe you can pick up a penalty for your troubles as well. Through the carousel we go. You can see wider there for Yura. It's going to cost him a bit of drive on the exit of that corner, and might leave him vulnerable to attack here from Takuma Miyazono.
Yeah, really easy to sort of fall out the carousel there, and you lose a lot of time when that happens. Up the whole act now, the highest point of the circuit, and now back downhill. Man, I always say it when we commentate here or watch one of these races, this last third of the track is probably the greatest stretch of racetrack in the world. The flow is just ridiculous, and in these cars, with all that aero, the corners come up sooner than you can deal with it. It's really a test of skill to get through here in these. And Gallo, you can see, he likes it. The gap down to 0.8 of a second there. And that's what that looks like. So what Gallo's trying to do here is get into slipstream range before we get to... Oh, mistake from Serrano!
Yeah,
he's off! So Gallo's right... Oh, he goes onto the grass and trying to avoid him. He's off too! Oh, and Yura and Gallo spins! Oh, this is what I was talking about. You get onto the grass here. See Mick Hazal there reacting to that head in his hands. Oh, what a shame for Valerio Gallo, just trying to avoid the accident up ahead. But you can't just send it into the grass. This car, the grip goes away there.
Yeah, we need to see another replay of that, don't we, really, and pick the bones of it from a different angle. But the upshot is now, Paul Yura it is that leads, Serrano's into second, Miyazono's into third, so we've gone from a four-way fight down to a three-way fight, and Gallo, the big loser in all of that there, just maybe a little bit too impatient, courtesy of the mistake that we saw being made there from Jose Serrano. The upshot is now that these three drivers, as they come onto the Döttinger Hill for the first time, are all nose to tail with one another. Yura, the driver who, of course, is got a hole being made in the air in front of him, with Jose Serrano now alongside as we go side by side with each other. Serrano back through and into the lead once again. Takuma Miyazono in third place, looking ready to try and pounce there as well. What it has done with Kylian Drumont, etc., has brought them just a little bit closer, and I wonder if later on that might prove to be a bit of a difficult time for those drivers, because of course they've just lost a bit of time that they would have otherwise have had in their pocket towards the end of this first lap.
Yeah, a bit of fuel saving there, I think, from Yura and Miyazono down the straight. Here's a replay. Let's try and find out what happened here. So Serrano, he was looking a bit sketchy. Just touched the grass on the way in. Goes into the ice curve. The car gets sideways. So here comes Gallo. He tries to go around the outside. The road falls away here. Off he goes onto the grass. Not the best angle there, but you can just see bit of panic there from Serrano. That's the first crack in the armour there, I think. And here's Gallo trying to go around outside, and yeah, he knows straight away it's over. Look at that big sigh. What a shame for Valerio.
I don't know what the Italian is for old bother, but I can imagine he was saying a few of those words. A disappointment there for Valerio Gallo. Really, really good form, a good great run from the Italian up until this point. But it's not over yet. There's still plenty of time left in this race for the complexion of it to change. There is Takuma Miyazono, top left of your picture. Pol Ura in the bottom left of your picture. And Miyazono, again, just playing the patient game then here. Serrano's now got all the hard work to do all over again here, Jimmy, hasn't he? He had, what, 1.5 seconds at one point over the first lap in his pocket. Sort of came down a little bit with Valerio Gallo now closing down. But he's not in as comfortable position as he could otherwise have been.
No, I mean, as I said, maybe the pressure, maybe he's feeling it now. This is a circuit where in such high concentration you can really find yourself making some mistakes. Here's a clearer view of what happened. Here's Gallo. So see Serrano in front. We go to the outside. Just doesn't anticipate the corner coming up, and then just car gets away from him. I mean, these Red Bull X2019s have a lot of grip until you get them to the grass, and they have nothing. Yeah, that's the problem, is they are on a knife edge, aren't they? And that's the thing with the cars, that they're very aerodynamic dependent. So as soon as you get out of that sort of aero range, you get onto the grass, you upset the balance, if you have a snap of oversteer, it's very hard to save it, because when they're on the limit of adhesion like these cars are, around corners such as this, you can turn them around with your little finger, basically, because there's just nothing to them. And when you get incidents like we saw there with Serrano and Gallo, it's a lot easier to do it than you might happen to imagine. The upshot is now Valerio Gallo's got a hell of a lot of work to do. He's 1.3 seconds off the back of Guy Barbara in 6th position. You can see in terms of the soft tyre as well, of course, he's used a lot of the useful shelf life. So the soft tyre runners are going to be coming into the pit lane at the end of this lap. And let's see how this one is going to work out then. Kylian Drumont, what's it, 7.4 seconds off the back of them. So it's okay for these top three at the moment. Nothing really for them to worry about. It's not like the medium top runners are sort of bearing down on them for now. It's nothing too concerning at this stage. There's a downside for leading Serrano there, as she used more fuel than anybody else. And that will affect his pit stop time. So if they all boxed as they were now, he would come out behind both of these guys. So He's chosen to go strong, to lead for now, but I just wonder if that for this race is going to be ideal for him. But to be honest, Serrano, he doesn't need to win this race. It would be nice for him to win it, of course, and have a Grand Slam here. I don't think we've had a Grand Slam since Mick has out a long time ago.
Yeah, it would have been 2019.
It's been a long time, so if he can do that here, that would be ridiculous. But ultimately, he doesn't need to win this race to walk away with the Nations Cup championship.
Fans watching on here in Fukuoka. What a fantastic venue this has been for our World Finals. You see Takuma Miyazono there, big amount of understeer through that right-hander, and it's just cost him a few tenths of a second or so. He's starting to drop back, not out of the range of those top two, but they're now beginning to push on a little bit more. Half a second or so, 1.1 seconds it was up to, and is now up to for Takuma Miyazono. So why is he losing touch here between Jose Serrano and Pol Ura? They're just pushing on a bit more.
He just made a mistake. He made quite a big mistake there coming out of Andau, and because he did that, he lost the slipstream, and the draft is worth a lot around here. So Ura currently enjoying the benefit of being close to back of Serrano, basically like a free, it feels like a free 50 horsepower when you're in the draft. It really is a massive effect, especially in these cars that are so aero dependent. But there is Miyazono in the background, 1.2 seconds the gap now. And this is where Serrano was weak last lap. He was weak through this last part of the lap. And this Pol Ura thinking about maybe making a move here, but we've seen Pol try and overtake some people, and Serrano is wide. He misses the chicane. Did he let Ura through there to try and maybe conserve some fuel? They're still going side by side, so I'm not sure if he went wide or that was intentional.
I wonder, as you say, if it is just a case of trying to save fuel. They're going to be coming in at the end of this lap. It's allowed Miyazono right back into the picture, though. I mean, what was he, 1.1 seconds off the back of them a few corners ago, and now he's right on the tail of Jose Serrano then here. So now is Ura going to use this as the impetus? Because look at the advantage he's already building up, 0.7 of a second at this mid part of the circuit. Ura and Serrano under investigation. So do they have a collision that we sort of just caught the tail end of going through the carousel then here?
I was saying before, Ura's hit the back of the people before. Here we go. So we're on board with Pol Ura into the carousel. That was it.
Serrano's deep. And there was a bit of contact there, but Serrano had already made the mistake at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. I think it's sorted itself out.
Yeah, Ura there just just trying to keep his calm and focus, really, to be honest. Now in the lead of this race and trying to extend the advantage over Serrano. I suppose the one advantage here for Paul Ura, maybe he can afford to do it a bit more, because Serrano, of course, has expended that bit more fuel. He's got a few litres fewer in the tank compared to Ura, and I wonder if that might come back to bite Serrano a bit later on.
Yeah, but the point is, Ura trying to spread that gap here is the worst decision, because now look at it's for nothing, because now they're in the draft and he's just used more fuel for nothing. So Miyazono looking the best out of the leading three fuel-wise at the moment. We expect to see them boxing into this lap. Serrano there just driving back through in a straight line, using that slipstream, using that toe. Here comes Miyazono. He might try and get both of them here for a life. You can see just the gaps there in the back. What a shot that is all the way down the Donjaho. Huge straight here. A bit of a time to relax for the drivers, but not for these guys. They're door banging, whatever constitutes as a door in this thing, down the straight. And Miyazono up into second place, but they're all going to be piling into the pits here, Tom. But the question is, onto what tyre?
Well, that's the thing. Surely they're all going to have to follow one another in terms of the strategy, going on to what you would imagine would be the hard tyre or the medium tyre. Yeah, they're all going for the mediums, aren't they, surely, at this mid-stage of the race, and then they'll run the hard and take the pain right at the very end. The idea being that they can build up as much of a gap as they can over the rest of the field in the first two phases of it. Let's see how it all works out then. So Serrano and Miyazono, and Serrano's actually decided to be the outlier of that. He's gone for the hard tyre in the middle stint of this one, so it depends now for him what he can do on this hard tyre. What he needs to do, really, is keep in touch with Miyazono and Ura, because he's going to be on a slower competitive tyre. If he can limit the damage as much as possible in this middle phase of the race and keep within distance, then he'll be in a great position to attack in the closing stages of it.
So Serrano has gone onto the hard tyre, but he opted not to take any fuel there, whereas Miyazono and Ura both took a good chunk of fuel so they can push a little bit harder. There's a gap, but Serrano, of course, in that hard tyre is it's about 10 seconds a lap slower than the soft tyre, about 6 or so slower than the medium. So really interesting. What else I found interesting as well, I didn't realise this until now basically, is that when you select your tyre you go onto, it becomes visible here. And both Miyazono and Serrano waited to the last possible second to show their tyre to each other, because they're like, right, we're in a fight here, and they both went separate ways. So really interesting, that to me.
You cannot believe the amount of mental arithmetic that's going on for these drivers in the race. They are literally thinking at 100 miles an hour whilst they're doing a couple of 100 miles an hour.
Well, this is the thing about sim racing, right? And I think where maybe these guys don't get their credit is they're not only drivers, they're also their strategists, their own engineer as well. They're checking things like the weather. They're doing everything in the car, whilst, as you said, just wrangling this thing around, in my opinion, one of the most challenging circuits in the world.
Do they their own performance coaches as well, give themselves a little rub down after the race?
Well, I mean, what they do in the hotel room was completely up to their top, but we won't pry.
That 3 out of 7 we're on then. Kylian Drumont it is now that leads the race. You can see the top 4 runners are yet to pit at this stage of the race. So Drumont, Sasaki, Barbara and Karatza, they're all out of position. So Serrano, he's your effective race leader at this point. He's made the pit stop and he's in a nice bit of clear air. 20 seconds he's got over Adriano Karatza. That's working out quite nicely for him there so far. 5.5 seconds though is the gap between himself and Takuma Miyazono. Now, if we were on a traditional circuit that was about 5, 6, 7 kilometres long, that's not a gap that could come down over the course of a couple of laps. Here, it's going to come down in the space of probably about half a lap or so, given the length of this circuit. And, Takuma Miyazono, sitting there in 6th position, will be right on the gearbox of Jose Serrano, I'm sure, before too long. And of course, just to remind you, Serrano did not take any fuel in this first pit stop of the race. On board we ride meanwhile with Takuma Sasaki. So he and Drumont are up 4 places from where they started. They're on the medium tyre, so presumably they'll be coming in at the end of this lap and changing over to either the hard or the soft. But they're involved in a battle for position, really. It's not a battle for the podium positions at the moment, although, of course, I know it is, but like relative to everybody else, once the pit stops all work out, you can see Sasaki just threading the eye of a needle as we come through in towards this right-hander. Such a fast and frightening part of the circuit. I mean, you could say that about pretty much every corner on the Nordschleife, couldn't you, really?
It really is one of the 7 wonders of the racing world here. He's going to go back down towards, and now Drumont now leading this race. He led this race last year at a similar sort of point as well. Alternative strategy though, we know Kylian's good round here. Kylian's good in his X2019s as well. Sasaki doing very well to hold on there. Look who's in the background. Guy Barbara, this guy, man, he's always there, isn't he? He's always around. Just never quite manages to break through, but he is catching these two, only 2 seconds behind.
It can't be discredited how hard Guy Barbara's had to work just to get qualified for the Gran Turismo World Series in 2025, and of course we've had the same 12 drivers over the course of all of our events so far this season, so a credit to him. And unfortunately for Guy, the results just haven't really fallen in his favour for one reason or another. Some his fault, some is not his fault, and we do hope that it's not the last we'll see of him in the GT World Series. He sits there in third position at the moment. Once the pit stops all work out, they'll be dropping down the order a little bit, but for now we can just sit there and enjoy watching what is unfolding in front of him, this battle for the race lead between Kylian Drumont and Takuma Sasaki as they head their way in towards the carousel. This is where we saw the drama between Serrano and Ura a few laps ago. On board we ride here with Takuma Sasaki then. And this is the view he's got in front of him of Kylian Drumont. Just listen to the throttle as we're coming through this part of the circuit. Look how smooth he has to be in terms of the inputs.
He had a couple of goes of that though there. What you maybe don't see about this part of the course on your screen there is just how cambered it is. It's so important to put the car in the right part of the road. Otherwise, your car almost magically understeers. It's something that comes with experience for sure. And these guys have that in space. Drumont there, I think, maybe it's a little bit quicker for this part of the circuit as we come into Bridgestone here, up towards the ice curve. Also, because in the wet, the thing is lethal through here. You can use the curb on the right a little bit, but not too much more, as Serrano found out. Now we come up to Fran's car, and in a normal car, this is a jump, and these things, they are glued to the floor with downforce. Small lift now to come up to the Baloff S, on the scariest part of the circuit. The road just falls away from you. You have to trust in the grip of the tyre and the downforce of the car as we come up now towards maybe the Kleiner carousel. Very tricky corner this one. Anyone who's on mission 34 will know that. Drumont there suffering. I've been in that barrier so many times in sim. Really hard to get that corner right. And now this is where Sasaki really wants to be. This is the prime seat going down the Dotton to Hurley, one of the longest straights in motorsport anywhere. You don't want to be leading going here. You want to be where Sasaki is. You get a huge toe down the straight. It's just free power, free speed.
Yep, working out quite nicely here for Takuma Sasaki. Is he going to attack against Kylian Drumont? Is he just going to opt to save fuel at this point, play the longer game in this race? He's not quite alongside Kylian Drumont. He's just sitting there in the slipstream, so I think he is deciding for that sort of smarter strategy here, maybe saving a couple of litres of fuel, which might prove to pay dividends when it comes down to the pit stops, because it's about 2 litres a second in terms of the total refuelling time, so everything you can gain will prove to be a benefit later on in the race. Out of the final turn we go then, in towards the pit lane and into the box for Kylian Drumont and for Takuma Sasaki. Now, are they going to diverge in terms of strategy? Look at the fuel difference there between them, about 4 litres is how it's changed. Meanwhile, Paul Ura and Takuma Miyazono, they're side by side. I was keeping an eye on the gap with Jose Serrano. 5.5 seconds it was. It still stayed at about 5 seconds, so despite being on the slower compound of tyre there for Jose Serrano, he's not lost too much time relative to everybody else. It's working out quite nicely for him so far. But the top 4 all in for the hard tyres and all taking fuel on board as well.
Yeah, I'm interested in the lap times there. As you say, that's a nice lap there, but of course only really one lap, I think, Serrano. I know he's opted to go for another lap on that tyre there. I thought he'd come straight in and get rid of that, so the medium tyre obviously not as good as informed, and Serrano's last lap was 6.54 compared to Paul Ura's 6.58.
Well, so if you sorry, Jimmy, if you're new to the GT World Series and you want
medium tyre obviously not as good as informed, and Serrano's last lap is 6.54 compared to Paul Ura's 6.58.
Well, if you sorry, Jimmy, if you're new to the GT World Series and you're wondering about tyres, the hard tyre, it's the most durable tyre, but it offers the least grip. The medium somewhere in the middle, and the soft tyre, of course, is the quickest tyre because it's softer, it's grippier, but it wears out a lot quicker. So Serrano here, as you say, Jimmy, he's going for the hard compound of tyre. He's playing a different strategy now at this point, which I guess in reverse of that is going to then mean that he's got medium tyres that are a bit fresher towards the end of the race.
Yeah, but his sectors are good. His sectors are really good. Like, he's keeping that car alive. I mean, he's not as fast as Ura Miyazono, but he's fast enough to as you say, to put himself in a good position for his final stint. Anyway, on board with Valerio Gallo, recovering, of course, from that incident at the start of the race. Valerio loves the Nürburgring. He's traditionally quite fast around here. Goes from on Drumont, easy. That's the tyre advantage right there. Up the inside, the Drumont can do nothing to just allow the move to be made. In the background, look behind Drumont. Look who's caught him. That gap was 3 seconds for their box. Now, Guy Barbara right on the back of Kylian Drumont.
Yeah, he's been driving really well as Guy Barbara. Last time around, a pretty competitive lap time considering where he was in terms of the tyre and fuel strategy at that point. So, as you say, an opportunity knocks here for maybe a top 5 finish, and that'll be a lovely way to bookend what has been a tough season for the Australian driver coming into this event. He only had 1 point on the board, so he's adding a few more to his tally, is Guy Barbara, but let's see how many more he can add here in the grand final, which, just to remind you again, is double points. 24 is your total. That's the maximum that you can get for this one. At the moment, Jose Serrano has won both races, has scored a maximum of 24 points in both of those, and could be set to add more to his tally and absolutely dominate the Nations Cup here tonight.
Serrano, well, he just set a purple sector and then Gallo to get away there, but on that hard compound tyre. Serrano's flying that hard tyre, and actually, I don't think it is 10 seconds lap slower, you know?
No. Well, it's certainly not with Jose Serrano. That much is for sure. He's just driving so well, and the hard tyre is the one where you have to limit the damage. We know that. We've seen it so many times with drivers. They flick it onto the hard tyre and then they really struggle. So Saki's just about to allow Valerio Gallo through. He's got the indicator on saying pull to the left, go and overtake us. I'm not going to fight this one there too much. And Gallo goes through and up into fourth.
Now, funnily enough, if you did that at the ring and you indicated that way to points as opposed to which way I'm going, you get told off. So, tut Sasaki. Learn your NLS regulations.
I'm sure that will come in useful. Jose Serrano, you can see the live points rankings on your screen at the moment. It would give him a 19-point advantage over Pol Euro if the checkered flag was thrown now, but still plenty of time for this race to adapt and evolve. Miyazono there in third place. He'll be right on the coattails of this one. So Valerio Gallo, who's in fourth position, he is in a good place here to move his way up, possibly into the top three positions in terms of the final order. What's he on at the moment? It'd be 37 points if the checkered flag fell now. So he'd have a 4-point deficit to Takuma Miyazono to overhaul him for third.
He's got about 8 seconds to make up to do that, Tom, right now, because of that spin earlier on. So the thing is, he is catching. But is he catching quick enough? So it's going to have to be a hell of a stint here from Gallo to try and upset that top three. There is your leader right now, Jose Serrano, looking cool, calm and collected. This man, 3.5 laps away from his first individual Nations Cup win, of course, part of Team Spain for 2023 when we had that format. But I really do think there is he must be having those thoughts now. Must be starting to think about it.
So if we look at Takuma Sasaki, Kylian Drumont, etc., all those drivers who are sort of in that mid-bubble, as it were, at the moment, how do you turn your race around at this point? You sort of sat there a bit in no man's land, really, not in the podium battle, not, you know, on the fringes of the top 10. What do? Do you throw something different at it? How do you change your race and give you an opportunity to maybe fight for a podium?
The only problem is now is that you are committed to your plan now. You can't really change what you're doing. You're locked in. So all you can really do is, you know, the fuel is probably where you're going to make some dishes up in the pit lane or somewhere else. But otherwise, just drive better, go faster. As my good friend Coyne would say, wheel harder.
On board here we are with Kylian Drumont. Look at him feathering the throttle through that right-hander. The problem with these cars, of course, they're very aerodynamic dependent, and he's in the dirty air all the way through this mid part of it, so he's costing him front downforce as he runs his way through this medium speed set of corners, so you just won't have the same grip as you would do for Takuma Sasaki, who of course is up front there running in clean air.
You can see there Sasaki making a couple of little mistakes through there, but they are little mistakes, and again they're wide and brutal, and it just allows Drumont to get a little bit closer, not troubling a lot of these apexes of Sasaki. I think he's just hanging on for dear life through here, as it feels like, to be honest, when you drive through here. But Drumont's getting ever closer. And this section where it's so fast, it almost acts as a straight. I know that sounds silly, but you're still getting the toe. You're just having to try and keep the car facing the straight away, keeping full gas as you come down into this next section of corners. The gap is 8/10 of a second. That is close enough for a draft down the straight.
So looking at Kylian Drumont then, just up in front there is Takuma Sasaki.
He's still there.
Yeah, it certainly is, Guy Barbara. He's not hanging about this. He's driving like he's left the gas on, isn't he, in this race, old Guy Barbara. And good to see him having a good run, as we said a few times there now. And he's right on the coattails, or closing up onto the coattails of those drivers in front. Look at Serrano in terms of the fuel. 2 litres left. It's going to be close, isn't it? He's going to be surely lifting and coasting here at this point. What we need to do really is sort of ride on board and get an idea of the actual speed. Let's have a look at the gap between them. Was it 5 seconds as it sits now? I think he might just be able to sort of coast it to there. But it's tight there. Very, very fine margins for Jose Serrano, and he just makes it in with 0 litres left. That is as close as you like for the Spaniard. I tell you what, he'll be clenching his way into that pit lane.
I thought I heard him cough there, come out that last corner, but No, I mean, it doesn't even look like he cares about that. I was here thinking it was over for Serrano. Like, yeah, just part of the plan, man. It's like, but all in hand, all in hand. So it's going to be a long fuel stop for Serrano now, well, a longer stop, because he has to now fuel from 0 to the end of the race. So this thing's pretty thirsty as well. Unsurprisingly, it's a lot of power, a lot of downforce to push through that air. So it's a long pit stop. It'll feel like an eternity now for Serrano. Look how far they're pushing down the field, down to P10. But of course, everybody else needs to make their last stop. This is his last stop of the race, and he will push to the end from here.
And it's where he's going to emerge in the pack as well. What you want after a pit stop like this is to emerge in clear air. You don't want a car that's in front of you costing you time and downforce. And as we know, because it's so one line on the majority of the Nordschleife circuit, you're going to be hemorrhaging time. Thankfully for Jose Serrano, he comes out of the pit lane there in 11th position, so down in last place, but he's got, what, 13 and a half seconds. So though he's down in last position at the moment, he's now in the effective race lead. All he needs to do is basically shrink that gap down to Samuel Cardinal as best he can on this medium competitive tyre, fresher tyres relative to everybody else around him, and he'll be fine.
It seemed like that was quite a long field stop. I mean, I don't think he put too much in. I mean, he knows better than we do, obviously, with his strategy there, but it must feel like an eternity waiting for that to go in.
I mean, I've got to be honest with you, given what it was like going into the pit lane, I'd just stick a couple more litres in if I were me.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got it. We'll see. I mean, we all know what happened to Kai de Bruin last year, running out of fuel at the last corner, basically causing a pileup that cost Serrano a chance of winning the Nations Cup then. So I'm sure maybe he's thinking back to that, thinking, yeah, I'll put an extra litre in just to make sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Speaking of Kai de Bruin, actually, what a disappointing day he's had at the office. It's such a shame there, because there was a great promise with him getting pole position for that first race, and he kind of thought, oh yeah, okay, maybe now's the time. He's had a podium in the World Series this year, but other than that one-off podium, which I think was in London, if memory serves me correctly, it's just not really fallen in his favour, and we seemed to talk about that last year as well, and again here tonight, the same story seems to repeat itself.
Yeah, he's devastatingly fast over a single lap, but unfortunately he just doesn't quite have that consistency needed for that race pace. Can't quite convert. So yeah, I mean, it'll be a learning experience for Kai and for some of the other drivers that haven't performed as maybe they would have hoped to do so. But for now, we go back to this battle. Sasaki?
Easy for you to say.
Exactly, it's Sasaki. Drumont and Barbara in the background there, still holding on to the back of these guys. I do wonder where they're going to end up when we see the last stops at the front of the field. These guys on the hard compound tyres, they'll go on to the quicker compound. Will they come back at the cars in front? We'll have to wait and see.
Well, this is what we saw last year, wasn't it? Where you get drivers, they stick it onto the soft cover of the tyre right at the end of the race. It gives them a massive amount of performance. So let's be fair, it's been a steady race, is being polite about it up until this point. In terms of on-track action, we've seen a few overtakes, but nothing really all that meaningful. A lot of these drivers, they're playing the long game. That's why you're not seeing Sasaki and Drumont knocking 7 bells out of each other at this stage. They're just waiting for the right opportunity to pounce. They're on the hard tyres, they're taking that pain now. And as Jimmy's quite rightly said, they're going to be on the soft tyre at the end of this one, which could bring them right back into play. The gap between themselves and Sasaki, what's that, 5 seconds or so. Sasaki owes the soft tyre there as well. So Sasaki is going to be the one that surely is going to be in the penalties here, because he's only got 5.6 seconds to Valerio Gallo for that final place on the podium. Gallo is going to be on the hard tyre at the end of this one, so surely you would say Sasaki will be a bit of a bet for a challenge, at least for the podium, if the likes of Drumont, etc. are not able to close up.
Yes, these laps are crucial for this chasing pack, and they have to maximise this hard tyre as much as they can anyway, to put them in the best possible position to chase at the end of this race. Sasaki is still leading up the hill from Drumont in the background. Barbara there as well. Good performance, as you said, from the Australian driver, really doing well, really just showing that he can be at the sharp end of the field. Things seem to fall his way. For the mid curve, completely flat through there, and Drumont there, you see, just cruising up to the back of Sasaki and probably just lifting a bit there, because here, having that little bit less fuel, having to put a bit less fuel in the car, is going to be a big advantage. You have a quicker stop than the guy around you. It's going to put you in the preferred position leading around here for the last couple of laps.
Yeah, through the carousel we go. No sale here for 4th, 5th and 6th place. As we said, playing the long game in terms of this race, because as they're so close to one another, you know, the gap to Sasaki's, again, it's starting to increase a little bit there, with Sasaki versus Gallo up to 6.4 seconds. But you would expect that. Gallo's on the medium competitive tyre at this stage, and, you know, he's still got enough life left in it at the moment to clearly be pulling out a gap over Sasaki and the following two drivers. At the sharp end of this one, Miyazono and Ura separated by 7/10 of a second. Meanwhile, Serrano, 13.5 seconds when he came into the pit lane, now down to just over 10 seconds. So he's able to just run a nice, clean, comfortable, calm race at the moment, Jose Serrano. Exactly what he wanted to do, trying to use the undercut effectively, the different strategy to give him more of a gap. It was only a few tenths of a second when he came into the pit lane, if you remember, for that first pit stop. So when he comes into the pits for the final time and out of it subsequently, he'll hopefully have enough of a cushion so that he's not under any threat on that final lap.
Well, we're only about a minute or so away from finding out where everyone sits after the strategies are all said and done. So there's your tyre history. Only one to do the two stops is Serrano. Everyone else has to box. Miyazono and Ura are now going side by side down the straight, I think, just to avoid squabbling. And this is going to be interesting now.
Just to correct my thought, by the way, when I said Serrano coming in, I meant all the other drivers coming in for their final pit stop, because of course Serrano is in the final phase of this race. Then down the Dottinger Hill we go. Miyazono pulls alongside Pol Ura as we come in towards the final couple of corners. Ura not fighting that one too hard. They're again just waiting for their final pit stop, which will surely be coming at the end of this lap, and they'll be putting on the hard compound of tyre for the closing stages of this one. All the other field, of course, have got to make their final pit stops. Look at how close it is in terms of fuel. They've got a bit more left in the tank than Jose Serrano did, but not too much.
No. So in they come. Hard compounded tyre all round. So Drummond, Sasaki, Barbara, they now pit. They'll go onto that soft compounded tyre. They get to hunt rather than be the hunted for the last part of this race. 2 laps here then will decide the winner of the grand final. We'll keep an eye on Serrano. We'll see where he ends up. He's currently going down the back straight at the moment. Fuel going in. This will feel like a very long time for these guys, of course. Only 2 laps needed, though. Much shorter than the stop Serrano had, having to fuel for that extra lap. There they go. Miyazono out, Ura out as well, so both moving. Miyazono opting for less fuel there than Ura, so less to play with whilst leading, but it seemed that he wanted to have track position.
I think it's working out quite nicely here then for Jose Serrano, because although he's not going to gain track position in terms of the race lead at the moment, he's on the medium tyre for the closing stage of this one. So let's see how he comes out into the gap. What's it, 5.9 seconds, but he's got, 2 laps left to play with, and he's got a quicker compound of tyre relative to Ura and to Takuma Miyazono. They're now into the final phase of this race, onto the hard compound of tyre, but all they've got to do is try and keep Jose Serrano at bay for another lap and a half. Sounds easy. In principle, it's going to be very, very tough for them to do so.
It is. So Takuma Miyazono, the home driver here, leading the race at the moment, but for how long? Pol Ura 1.4 seconds behind on the same compound of tyre. Jose Serrano, current points leader, 5 seconds behind Pol Ura on the medium compound tyre. Then there's a little bit of buffer between them and the soft runners. Watch out for Drummond, watch out for Sasaki, watch out for Guy Barbara. They're going to be charging in these last 2 laps. All to play for still here for the last 2 podium positions in the Nations Cup. But if Jose Serrano stays where he is right now, he will be champion. That will be going through his mind right now, Tom. Do I push? Do I keep it safe from here? It's harder than it sounds, trust me.
Yeah, no doubt about it. In terms of second and third place as well, that will be very close. Just 3 points in it. At the moment, if the checkered flag fell, it would be Miyazono. If the checkered flag fell, it would be Miyazono on 49 points, 46 points there for Pol Ura. Let's have a look then at Sasaki versus Drummond. This is down the Dottinger Hill. Drummond on the attack against the Japanese driver as they came under the bridge. Nice and easy there between those two. Bit of contact. This is where we saw it all kicking off here 12 months ago, but Drummond able to get the better of the Japanese driver and through for 4th position. So a nice easy overtake there for the Frenchman as they've now made their final pit stops. Live points rankings, as you can see on your screen. So Serrano, 3rd place would be enough for him to be crowned as a champion. Miyazono there ahead of Pol Ura. So in terms of 2nd and 3rd place in the standings, Miyazono needs to outscore Pol Ura to be able to do that. At the moment, it's enough for the Japanese driver, what looks to be the outgoing Nations Cup champion. So we'll see how that one is going to work out. 1.5 seconds is the gap between the top 2.
A lot of home support here for Miyazono. People in the crowd with scarves and merch. I wonder where they got that from. I think they make it. I don't know. The Japanese crowd here, definitely one of the cooler ones here. Lots of very interesting bits of supporting memorabilia created by our fans. Jose Serrano, 3rd place right now, catching quickly Pol Ura and Takuma Miyazono, owing to the fact it's in that medium compounder tyre. And he can just push to the end now. That tyre's going to last completely fine. And that'll be a really freeing thought if you're Serrano. You haven't got to save, you haven't got to worry about the car behind you. You can just push forward into the gap in front of you. And surely Paul Ura isn't going to fight too hard.
You wouldn't have thought so, but you know, this is Gran Turismo, this is the World Finals, it's the last chance you've got to do it, and you get a bit of desperation starting to creep in. We were talking about Valerio Gallo and his podium challenge. You can see he's there on the hard combat of tyre. Look at Drummond, Sasaki and Barbara. This is exactly what we were talking about a couple of laps ago. They're now closing right up on to the back of the Italian driver. And, well, they've got enough time to be able to make it work. The problem is, are they going to come across him at the wrong time on the circuit? Because it's all well one thing closing up here at the Nordschleife, but getting past is such a difficult thing to do, even despite the massive difference in performance between the hard tyres on Gallo's car and the soft tyres on Drummond, Sasaki and Barbara.
He's going to catch him in a really nice place. So just coming out of here there, he hasn't been slowed down at all, and now he's going to just get a free draft all the way uphill. So a really ideal spot for Drummond to catch Gallo. Will Gallo defend him? We know Gallo had a spin early on. He probably knows this race isn't going to get much better than it is right now. So I wonder how hard the Italian is going to defend. Drummond just cruising up to the back then of Valerio Gallo's X2019 car, punching a hole in the air. Will he try and go for a move here through the mud curve? He's getting closer and closer. Looks to the outside here. Will Gallo try and hold the position? He does. He's not going to get in for three, and they go side by side, breaking down there. But there's the soft compounder tyre. Oh, wide goes Drummond. He hits the wall. He goes wide. Oh my word! That could be it for Kelly and Drummond there. Just pushing too hard. Gallo defending as he's entitled to do so, and Drummond is pushing wide into the wall.
Well, under investigation for the collision then between Drummond and Valerio Gallo. Let's see what the stewards are able to pick the bones out of with that incident. The upshot is, as Jimmy said, that could easily prove to be the end of the podium challenge. Serrano now through on Pol Ura for second place though, meanwhile, whilst that was all unfolding behind. So Pol Ura deciding that he can't hold up Jose Serrano, his compatriot at the moment. Serrano's next target, 1.9 seconds up the road. Takuma Miyazono, quicker combat of tyre on the Spaniard's car. It's looking good for 3 wins in 3 races here tonight in the Nations Cup.
He's still got a little bit to go. Big understeer. We saw him go off here earlier on, just about gathering it back up again. Jose Serrano, look at him right now. Imagine what you must be feeling. The car is fast. You're on a quick tyre. You can see the gap to the car in front is coming down. And you know, if you can keep this together for just one more lap, you are going to be the Nations Cup champion of 2025. Here he comes then to the last part of the circuit. I say that, we'll go back to a replay. This is Serrano and Ura. And Ura actually made a mistake. It's why it was so easy to get by. Goes wide that whole act, and Serrano just drives through the gap there. So yeah, thank you very much, mate. Appreciate that. Off I go. I'm going to go chase down Takuma.
Well, we've seen a couple of mistakes from the 2 Spaniards then here tonight, and well, Pol Ura, the latest one to do so. See the headlights now illuminating the darkness. Drummond and Gallo, it's been deemed a racing incident. Right call, I feel that was. As we come down the Dottinger Hill then for the penultimate time. The gap now between Miyazono and Serrano down to a second as they burst their way through and into the darkness. The trophy there on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, that's the one that Jose Serrano wants to be holding aloft. Second place, as we know, would be more than enough for him to be crowned as the champion, but you always want to sign off on a win, don't you? No doubt about it for Jose Serrano. When is he going to pick his moment as we come through to begin the final lap of the 2025 Gran Turismo World Series? It's Miyazono that leads from the fast-charging, medium-shod Jose Serrano. Pol Ura sitting there in 3rd place after that mistake cost him positions on that final lap, the last lap that we went on, but ultimate lap of racing. And let's see how quickly Serrano can latch onto the back of Takuma Miyazono and attack the Japanese driver here.
It's not over yet in the midfield either, Tom. We have Drummond, Barbara and Sasaki. They've got by Gallo and are now chasing down Pol Ura. We think that soft tyre's around 10 seconds lap faster than the hard tyre, and there is a 6-second gap between Drummond and Ura, and importantly Miyazono too, so none of these drivers are safe, bar maybe Serrano. So things could all change in the championship. It seems Serrano's in the pound seat right now, but Miyazono and Ura both trying to make sure they get onto the podium here today. So and they really will charge hard on this last lap. Here is Serrano then getting closer and closer to the Japanese driver. This must feel great right now, just being in this position for Jose Serrano. Miyazono slow off the corner. I think it's a done deal, Tom. Here it comes.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He's in the slipstream then. Here is Jose Serrano onto Kimi Miyazono down into the chicane. He's got the inside line, and now he takes the race lead on the final lap. Jose Serrano is through to the front of the race with just a lap to go here at the Nordschleife as we come onto the circuit then. And now let's see how quickly Jose Serrano can pull away from Takuma Miyazono. This has been an absolute masterclass in terms of performance for the Spanish driver. Let's not forget, of course, he won the Nations Cup back in 2023 when it was a team effort back in that year and sort of one-off, as it were. But this would be the first chance for him to be crowned individually as the Nations Cup champion. Third would have been enough. He didn't need to fight for second and indeed the lead of the race, as we just saw, but he wants to sign off with a victory, no doubt about it, and that's exactly what he is set to do here.
So his 5 point standings here. If Kylian Drumont can get up into second place here, he will put himself on to the podium. He will knock Paul Ura or Takuma Miyazono off. So it's not over there for the last couple of podium places. Here's a replay of that move then. This must feel like a victory lap now for Jose Serrano. Up the inside, it's Takuma Miyazono. Not much resistance offered there by the Japanese driver. Neither had to go on and say, yeah, thanks mate, I appreciate that. I know you can't really fight me. And then off he goes, sparking down the hill there towards the compression at the bottom. What a beautiful image this is.
Just a masterful strategy there from Jose Serrano. You know, took the pain in the middle stint there on the hard tyre, but clearly was calculating that, working out the fact that he was going to drop off the back, have that gap relative to the rest of the field, and just be in a nice, comfortable cushion, nice, comfortable position in the closing stages of that race. You know, able to run his own lines, run his own race, and ultimately it's that middle stint that's given him the chance of that victory, because he just kept so much pace on the hard tyres relative to everybody else.
But one Spaniard's pleasure is another one's pain. Paul Ura right now, looking in his mirror, will see this, a train of 3 very fast cars. Drumont, Barbara and Sasaki there, taking chunks and chunks out of the guys in front of them. Guy Barbara up into 5th position as well there, so he's also looking to try and end off the 2025 season on a high, but the gap down to only 2.8 seconds. So Kylian Drumont, you know, he must be thinking about that mistake he made on the last lap. That cost him about 1.5 seconds, that did. If he had not made that, he'd be with Paul Ura right now.
I suppose the thing as well is Paul Ura also made a mistake a couple of laps ago as well, didn't he? So it's funny how it all ebbs and flows. We just saw Drumont and Barbara under investigation for a collision. We'll try and pick the bones out of that one. Not quite sure who was at fault for it. The stewards just having a look and seeing if anybody indeed was so. You can see Sasaki also still very much latched onto the back of Guy Barbara for 5th position there as well. In terms of the overall standings, it won't make too much of a difference for Guy Barbara. In terms of Takuma Sasaki, though, it could leapfrog him ahead of Valerio Gallo for 5th place in the standings if he's able to jump himself up the order potentially. We'll wait and see how that works out, though. We look here, though, at Kylian Drumont, who is in 4th position. What about Sasaki? Is he going to be able to attack against Guy Barbara? Side by side they run. He's got the inside line here then as Sasaki, but it changes to the outside line as we flick it through the right-hander. Barbara goes deep into the corner, and Sasaki just has to wait to fight another day as Barbara holds firm for 5th place as we come into the carousel then. The headlights illuminating the darkness here at the Nordschleife as the sun sets on what has been a spectacular 2025 Gran Turismo World Series, and it's not over yet, but Kylian Drumont is deemed at fault for the incident we saw between himself and Guy Barbara, has a 1-second penalty, and is that podium challenge over then for Kylian Drumont with less than half a lap to go?
Yeah, that is huge for Drumont. That's pretty much going to just put paid to his podium chances there. It just goes to show that you have to be consistent. You can't be making these mistakes. You can't be having these contacts. And that really is a reflection of this whole series. One man who has been consistent throughout with me. To be fair, he made one mistake in this race, but he gathered it up very nicely. Jose Serrano leading out front. The gap is 3.3 seconds. He's only got a couple more corners left and the back straight between himself and putting his hands on that Nations Cup trophy.
Takuma Sasaki then attacking against Guy Barbara, or at least trying to, again, closing up onto the back of him. This is a great little tussle that's going on for 5th position. It may not be the battle for the race win that we've seen so many times here at the Nordschleife in these Red Bull X 2019s, but it's a fantastic tussle and a great example of defensive driving and also respectful driving between 2 long-time competitors in the Gran Turismo World Series. Through in towards the right-hander we go, on towards the Dossinger Her for the final time, and Takuma Sasaki is going to have the advantage of the slipstream here against Guy Barbara as we come down this back straight. Meanwhile, Jose Serrano is comfortably in the pound seats here. He's got a great cushion over the rest of the field, and what a season the Spaniard has put together. What a night he has put together in the GT World Series here in the Nations Cup. Yesterday he was crowned as the Manufacturers Cup champions for Porsche, and back in 2023 he was crowned as the Nations Cup champions as part of a team effort. But now in 2025 he will become his own champion in his own merit as Jose Serrano wins the grand final and becomes the Nations Cup champion of the world in 2025. Takuma Miyazono crosses the line in second place, and Paul Ura finishes in third position ahead of Guy Barbara, who gets the better of Drummond. Sasaki drops down to sixth place at the checkered flag. But what a season Jose Serrano has put together. Absolute dominations, 2 titles in 2 days here in Japan.
What else can be said? This has been Jose Serrano's year. This is the guy that burst onto the scene a few years ago. He was fast but unrefined, and over the course of the last few years he's found himself, he's found his confidence, and look at the results on circuit. You cannot argue with that. There is no more deserving champion for 2025 than this man, Jose Serrano.
Fantastic job from Jose Serrano. What a feeling that is going to be. He is quite literally on top of the world at the end of our 2025 Gran Turismo World Series. Angel Estrada, as well as Takuma.